Everyone must have heard the story of Robinson Crusoe, who was able to survive in extreme conditions left alone on a desert island. He had to adapt to life in a wild place where no man had set foot before. Though this was a novel written by Daniel Defoe, our story today is about a real person who actually existed. This incredible story happened to a woman who was left completely alone in a wild place among ice and permafrost. And she was able to survive. How did she do it? What sacrifices did she have to make? And how did she manage to survive? This is what I will tell you in today's story. Make yourself comfortable because we are going on a journey to the realm of ice, winds, and lights, to Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean. Ada Blackjack was born in 1897 to an Eskimo family. Ada did not have the opportunity to learn literacy in mathematics. She did not know what a toothbrush was. At the sight of a weapon, she shuddered every time. She could not understand how the hunters shoot their prey. This caused her many conflicting feelings. After the death of her father, her mother sent her to a missionary school. There, she picked up a needle and learned how to sew, how to iron clothes, learned letters and how to read, and also learned English. There, Ada learned what money was, how to use it, and learned the traditions of the American people. Then she married Jack Blackjack, bore him 3 children, but only one of them survived. Her husband, instead of supporting the poor heartbroken woman, left her and moved to another place. Then Ada's son fell ill with tuberculosis. The woman did not have enough money for the treatment of her baby, and she was forced to give him to an orphanage so that at least somehow the baby was provided with food. Ada promised him that as soon as she earned enough money, she would return and take him home. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, 4 young men had decided to make an Arctic expedition to Wrangel Island, where no man had set foot before. They wanted to set up a weather station there. You may be wondering, how can these 2 stories be related? Well, the local policeman, knowing Ada's problems, knowing that she had a sick child and that she had no money for food, made her a very advantageous offer. He knew that the 4 men were going on a trip to the island of permafrost, but they did not have a person who would take responsibility for cooking and washing their clothes. Then the policeman invited Ada to go with them on this dangerous journey. They paid very well by those standards, as much as $50 a month, and a 2-year trip could bring considerable income. This money would be more than enough for the treatment of her son, for the purchase of a new, albeit small, house, as well as for other expenses for several months in advance. Of course, Ada was at a loss. A trip to such a harsh region frightened the girl, but the money that this trip offered promised a comfortable existence in the future. So, after much deliberation, Ada agreed. There was only one thing she left out of her preparation for this journey. The 4 men with whom she was going to go on the journey with were very well prepared in theory, but in fact, none of them had ever made such a trip before. They had no idea what might await them on Wrangel Island. They took with them enough food for 6 months in advance, weapons and ammunition. 6 months later, a ship was supposed to sail with replenishment of supplies for the travelers. Ada, who had never been on a ship before, suffered from seasickness. It was a real test for this unprepared woman. When they landed on solid ground, she did not know whether to cry from happiness or from horror. Everything around was white with snow. As far as the horizon, there was nothing for the eye to focus on. They were separated by a distance of 150 kilometers from the nearest human settlement. Not a single person can walk on foot 150 kilometers in the snow. Ada began to have her regrets, but it was too late to turn back. There was nowhere to go. They set up camp, built small structures where they could take shelter from the wind, and their work started. The men mastered the local flora and fauna, hunted for food, and were engaged in the installation of a weather station. Ada often saw polar bears and walruses on the horizon. She was very scared to be so close to such wildlife. At these moments, she caught herself thinking that the weapon, which she had been so afraid of before, was now necessary for their safety. Over time, she began to get used to the conditions around her and the realities of everyday life. Of course, she could not get used to it 100%, but she managed to adapt as much as possible so as not to go crazy. So, winter and spring passed. People were looking forward to the supply ship as their supplies were running out at a catastrophic rate. But at the appointed time, the ship did not come. The ship Lorna Knight, which went to the travelers with provisions, got stuck on the way, and they couldn't wait for it. Yes, the men were engaged in hunting, but in addition to this, they also ran out of gunpowder and matches and medicines and other necessary things. everything would be fine, but one morning, one of the men woke up with stiffness in the back and pain in his joints. Apparently, he had scurvy. Unfortunately, there was nowhere to wait for help. Having lost hope for outside help, in January 1923, the men decided to act on their own. Having collected the remnants of supplies and necessary things, they went to the mainland for help, 1,200 kilometers from their camp. They left Ada with their sick friend, surrounded by snow and ice. The woman had to get food on her own in order to take care of herself and the man with scurvy. One can only imagine what the poor woman had to go through. The helpless man took out all his anger on Ada. He scolded her for undercooked meat, for dirty socks, for not bringing water quick enough. He did not even think about how hard it was for a fragile woman to independently manage the household in this harsh place. Ada's only joy was her cat, which the woman had taken with her from her home. She carefully hid the animal from predators, and she gave the cat her best pieces of food so that it could survive next to her. Soon, the man lost the battle with his illness, and Ada was left alone on the island. After some time, she lost count of days, lost touch with reality. The situation was aggravated by the onset of the polar night, which completely erased the boundaries of day and night in the mind of the woman. She was surrounded by endless snow and predators who each time came closer and closer, and only a handful of gunpowder was left. Ada even wrote a will where she indicated her salary to be paid to her son and her mother. She hoped that if she did not survive, then at least her body would be found with the document. Nevertheless, the woman found the strength to do housework. She even managed to take photographs of her life and kept diaries. She even collected rare skins of wild animals that she hunted. The only thing that kept her from giving up was the thought of her son. Everyone forgot about her. Help from the men who had gone to the mainland never came, and perhaps we would never have known about this amazing woman if, in August 1923, another ship had not approached that same island. Ada, not believing her luck, rushed to meet the colonists, shouting with joy. The men could not even believe their eyes. When they saw how the woman was able to survive alone in this impenetrable wilderness, they offered her to stay with them for a good salary. But Ada was already sick and tired from this ice trap and longed for only one thing: to return to her son as soon as possible. She was sent home. However, the $50 a month salary was never paid. But Ada nevertheless managed to succeed by selling the animal skins she had brought with her for a large profit. With the money, she could treat her son and buy a small house. So, thanks to her endurance, ability to adapt, and inexhaustible faith in a brighter future, the woman was able to survive among the ice and predators.